evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. My name is Christopher Fountain. I'm the account manager here at RevolutioniseSPORT, and with me today is also Liam Stewart, the senior platform specialist here at RevolutioniseSPORT. And thank you all so much for joining for tonight on this Rowing WA Club Development Series. Part of our approach here is to give you a bit more information to revSPORT and also some of the interesting elements that we are working on over the past 12 to 18 months as well. So we were over in Perth a couple of weeks ago running this session in person. I think we had a couple of rowing clubs that did attend that session and were sent some of our information. But this session is designed to intertwine with your rowing club development series that has been run by Rowing WA over this week, but also to give you a bit of insight, not only into a very big part of your club being revSPORT, but also a part of what we're doing at the moment to give you a bit more insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes in the platform, what could be news within your clubs now that you're taking registrations for the new year, and also some interesting elements that you could actually look to include for your upcoming membership year as well. Now, to do this, we're going to follow the very similar format, a little bit abbreviated for the time that we have here tonight, covering some of the recent developments that we've made within revSPORT. We have done a few training sessions in the past, and this will be a little bit more geared towards some useful tips and tricks that you could actually use moving forward for your club. And we have a very clear agenda for tonight around understanding you as a club admin, what do you need to do moving forward in respect to managing your finances and ways to diversify your revenue streams. So we're going to be talking a lot about how you can actually use the Australian Sports Foundation in order to improve the way that you take in donations and the ability to capture people as they register at the moment. We'll also talk around other ways that you can encourage members to flexibly pay for their fees at the point of registration. We'll cover ways you can best communicate this to your audience and other tools on the platform, giving you a bit of a behind the sneak peek around our newsletters functionality. Then we're going to go into a little bit more of a detail around common questions or common themes that we see around getting ready for the season in respect to registrations, what is considered best practice, and also exposure to good governance practices around updating how you ask questions to your members, and an overview of the new suspensions tool. We will have opportunity for you to ask any questions throughout the session. So again, I would ask if you have your mics on mute for the duration for the next hour or so. But again, if you do have any questions, I myself or Liam will respond to your questions in the chat box if you want to put them in there. But we will have a Q&A section for any other questions we don't go through tonight. So if this is your very first time coming across revSPORT, just a bit of background for those who may be in the call tonight. We are known as revSPORT. You would use us from a day-to-day for your club to take memberships and post events, run your website and your shop as well. But we are part of Sports Grid, which is the interconnecting network of elements that you as a club and association may run on the day-to-day. And part of our organisation is not just revSPORT, we're also releasing a new system called Handover, designed to improve the way that you as a volunteer may move into a new club and community for the very first time. And if you want to encourage more volunteers to take up the mantle or have a very good handover into your club, we are providing the opportunity for you to manage that. And some more information will be provided on that, which sits completely separate to revSPORT, but part of us as the same company as well. If you are not aware, you are part of an ecosystem of rowing where you as a club are part of the Rowing WA family, but also work intertwined with the other clubs and states that currently use revSPORT and will plan to do so in the near distant future. And because of that, some of our new enhancements are actually geared around how the peak system operates. And this goes into some good governance practices around how you can actually retain and manage members who may be suspended and ensure they don't move to another organisation unless you have given that approval, especially for unpaid fees or from other purposes. And for that information to flow up and down across the family tree, if you are asking questions at your club and you might have to go to a different club and ask the same questions, those questions can flow up and down if, say, they're asked by your state or your national body as well. So there's information that flows in your club account that may be shared across the family tree where if the relevant organisation asks, that member will answer those questions. We'll go into a bit more detail around that. And because of that, within revSPORT, as you may be aware, that unique member profile is retained season upon season. So currently going into the new membership year, you generally will need to communicate with those members from your past season in order to get them to renew for the new year. Now, to give a bit of background into what we've done over the past 12 to 18 months, is that we have obviously changed the look and feel of the platform. And if you are someone who has been on revSPORT for a number of years now, you might be familiar with the screenshot on the far left. We have gone through a transition process where we had close to 1.5 million lines of code, have now shrunk that down to about 150,000. And for us, was allow us to make the platform a lot more scalable to do some of the interesting things that we'll show you tonight. And because of that, we've allowed us to make the platform more scalable, mobile optimized, and a couple different areas that we'll touch on across the night, but also just to reinforce now that we've gone through this transition period where we found from a recent study published online a few years ago that 90% of organizations that go to re-platform, like revSPORT has done, about 90% of those organizations have failed. And we are very proud of what we've achieved, but ultimately we want to get to a stage where we start to announce some of the more interesting enhancements we now can do because of re-platforming. So to show you how we've done this over the best part of 12 to 18 months is to announce some of the changes that is now available to you as a club. We're talking a lot about the option to improve how you take donations or capture donations at the point of registration through our integration of the Australian Sports Foundation. We'll talk about how you can promote best governance practices, covering more extensively around the suspensions tool, but there are also elements around injury reporting and concussions that we won't have enough time to get to tonight, but it's something you can have a look at your own time. We'll give you a bit more of an overspill of how you can actually use the ability to charge a payment plan at the point of registration and allow the member to have their fees auto-debited for your club fees over a set period of time as well. And if you take event registrations using the events feature within revSPORT, there's also options to do that as well. So in order to set the scene, what I think is best to really understand some of those enhancements that we've released, what they actually look and feel like to the end user, being your members that are registering at the moment. And to do that, I'm going to go into the platform. And where I want to start at is, as you may be aware, your registration page. Currently within revSPORT, you have your members that have gone through, or you as an organization have gone through into the new membership year. And your members are currently going through the process to renew or become a member of your organization. There may be some certain checks and balances they need to do first. There may be some approvals that are done on the side, but generally speaking, and for most organizations on the platform, their members will go and register themselves online. So I've entered my core membership details, but what I'm going to show you throughout this registration process is showing you some of the key development changes that we've made that may benefit you as a club. So if you want to take notes, we've got this being screen recorded as well. And again, we'll have some follow-up information we can share to you as well. The key one we want to show you is during the registration process, there is now the option to offer those flexible payment options. And that option allows a member now to be set onto a payment plan at the point of registration, and your club fees can auto debit over a period that you want it to do so. On the membership page here on step 2, typically this is where you list your payment classes. You can select the membership type that the member wants to select. Now, there's a couple different options here which you can note has the flexible payment options. There are different memberships you may offer that are linked to Rowing WA and Rowing Australia fees, so they still present on the same sequence. Just if you were not aware, if I go back a couple steps, we do offer different memberships, including temporary memberships within revSPORT. We can talk offline if you want to have a look at that in a little bit more detail. And for some other sports, we do offer a different very type of membership linked to our competitions feature in revSPORT, just showing you why it's there. Probably not relevant for your club at this stage. Now, for your members, the reason you may want to give more flexible payment options is the member may be struggling to generally just pay their club fees over a set period of time. And paying for their rowing fees at, say, $800 if it's related to your club, or $2,000, could be something as small as, say, maybe 100 or less. Potentially, some members just need a little bit more time to pay it off, as they might be taking their weekly salary that contributes towards their fees. So, if in your case there's a risk involved giving members a payment plan and you want to organise that directly with the member, generally speaking, we have some clubs who may hide those options, but in revSPORT, they might have a link that goes to a particular payment class that allows that member to opt in onto the auto debit payment plan. Liam will show you a little bit more behind the scenes in the back end of revSPORT how you can set that up. But just to note, when you're going through this process, there are ways to show or hide this if you really want to. Go to the next step. You may be familiar with the page. I can enter discount codes. My fee that I've selected will be indicated of the different fees owed to different levels, hence the peak system. Our club fees priced at $200. Our rowing WA fees is $100. And theoretically, in this scenario, we have our rowing Australia fees. But in any case, I'm happy to proceed and I go on to the next step. We have found some really good practices over the years around clubs, especially in WA, and how they actually handle the questions they answer in a new membership year. We typically have members that are asked questions relating to emergency contact details, if they have a working children check. There are certain ways in the platform that also can be separately handled in tandem with your state and national body. But different questions you want to start to ask moving forward, moving away from collecting more private information, but thinking more about encouraging volunteering with your club or getting people with different certain experience, like being a lawyer or a tax expert or someone involved in sport from the day to day. They may be really good candidates for your subcommittees or your general committee or general volunteers that you can start to collect from members as they go and register. From my experience playing in sport, very different to rowing, but playing in football, my only experience going through a registration platform was just to sign up once, and that was the only thing I do per year. But from that process would be a really good time for the majority of people who are like that to ask relevant questions and the data you need to collect in that one seamless process. So to show you what other clubs are doing around this space, we've got a hockey club that does something a little bit different. So they ask questions relating to, very similar to the Alpine Sporting Club, emergency contact details, do you have a disability, are you identified as an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander? But going into that space of encouraging volunteerism and encouraging people to step up and make more of a contribution in their club, they do something a little bit cheeky. They actually require of the member to indicate what they're going to do in the club to volunteer. And for a hockey club, most of the parents and family members would be responsible doing something in terms of the club. So it might be the canteen, might be doing something in the bar, you might select multiple roles. But if the member does decide not to select any of those positions, they go, well, I'll just make a donation instead. And on the very next page, opens up into the Australian Sports Foundation. Now, to give a different club perspective, if I've selected that field or I haven't actually asked those questions at all, I just want to allow the ability to people to donate through the Australian Sports Foundation. So for a different club over in my state, New South Wales, they actually have a donations portal linked to the Australian Sports Foundation where a member can actually make a donation. And because they've made that donation with a payment processing fee applied to that to split to each of the organisations involved, the fee or the donation that the member makes, they'll actually be emailed a copy of the tax receipt, which they can later use for their tax return. So any donations that are made through the Australian Sports Foundation are actually tax deductible as a donation as well. The causes you can then use, instead of using your membership income or event income to fund different programs and say inclusivity programs or disabled programs, for example, there are many ways you can actually start to use the donations tool or causes to actually help fund that as well. So Liam will go through a little bit more detail a little bit later on how you actually go to set this up, very similar to a Cronulla water polo, but I'll take you a little bit later on how you can set those question fields, just like this hockey club has done so here. Now, I'm going to go proceed to the next step just to show you full circle what happens with that payment plan that we got set up on. So let me proceed to the next step. We saw before a member can pay the full fee of $500. Still remains the same. The member can go on and continue to pay. But because we opted in for that flexible payment option, I can actually pay for my capitation fees in full, which will still be required to the state and national body. But your club fee, which in this case was $200, I pay the very first deposit, being $50, and the remaining $150 is distributed across a couple of weeks. So in this club's perspective, the next $50 that is owed, which is to be charged weekly, will be charged for my first deposit today. Next week, my credit or debit card will be auto debited. And until all my payments have been made from my debit or credit card, I'll be considered fully financial and paid for the year. So let's go through and I'll select that. Confirm my terms conditions. So if you have not reviewed the terms or it doesn't display like this for yourself, where you want to go to is in the site settings section. I'll take you there a little bit later to show you where you might want to go to edit that. But really good practice to have a look at your terms if you don't do it already. Rowing WA and Rowing Australia would already set their terms that are stacked on pod of yours. I have a running joke with this page when I go through and put in my test credit card details. People think these are actually my actual credit card details, so please don't try and copy this because that still won't work. But again, as the member goes through this process, they enter their core details, confirm their registration, and they should be processed in the platform. Looks like it did not work here because I've actually used a bad email in my registration process because I'm linked to my work login at the moment. So ignore this message, it's just for us. But I will take you into the back end of revSPORT to see the members that have been loaded. So if I've actually got that member that is registered and they've gone in and registered successfully, that member would be loaded as a part paid or a paid member, as you can see just here. If I view the member, you can see the payments that they made on the very first time they registered, but also the additional payments will be charged weekly, fortnightly, or monthly based off the installments that are charged from our debit or credit card as well. I will flag that for the installments that are charged, the transaction fees are applied per component. So just be aware for your budget, especially now if you're absorbing transaction fees into your prices, you'll need to be aware of that and adjust your prices slightly. We've seen some clubs who may offer the non-payment plan option where it's still their club fee of say $500. And if they want to go down the payment plan option, their fees might be increased by $10 or $20 to account for transaction fees. Just an idea. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but again, you'll have access to this functionality very soon. With this and the changes with the Sports Foundation registrations that are opened up, it is really important for you to actually communicate with the members around those updates. And you might have sent those communications already, but to show you some other elements to what you can do in revSPORT with your communications, I'll now hand over to Liam to go through in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just share my screen. There we are. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining again today. So as Christopher mentioned, we're just going to talk a little bit about ways we can communicate with our members through the revSPORT platform. On the left-hand side, we're going to jump into our members feature. So if we want to email all of our members, we just click that email members button on the left, where we can filter it by payment status, include or exclude different options we have here. And then we have a really easy content window where we can construct that email, set the subject, or even load from a template for past emails that you may have saved for regular communications that you want to preload if they're going out again. And then at the bottom, we could save this as a template as well if you want to use it again in the future. If we need to filter our communications and send them to perhaps a subsection of our membership group or just a particular group of members, we can go to members search. And here we have a lot of filters where we can look at different demographics or subsections of our membership list to find those members and communicate with them really easily. For example, if I just want to contact all the members of a particular payment class or membership type, we have to look at all the paid members, and then we can filter down to see which ones have opted in to that payment plan. We can scroll down, see all the different other filters we can search for members for, and find out how many members fit within these parameters. We can see that 9 members have opted into that payment plan. Looks like all of them are fully paid, which is great to see as well. And if we just click the gray checkbox on the top, we can select all of our members and see these additional options come up at the top. From here, we can email these members as well. We can also add them to teams or groups that we have in our platform set up as well. This is another really great method for communicating with our members or even just organizing members into their different subcommittees, volunteer groups as well. So when you have different groups that make up your membership that you need to communicate with, it's great to keep these segmented in teams or groups, not just for competitions, but for that streamlined communication as well. To look a little bit more about how we can organize our members into teams, we're going to look at that teams feature here. This can also be, the terminology can be changed here to best suit your organization. So if you prefer to call it squads, crews, or groups, these are all options where you can change it if teams doesn't quite apply to you. But we can see down here, we've already got a few groups set up, whether it's the state-based members, groups specifically for coaches and officials, or our board members. This makes it really easy to find those groups of members and contact them, or if we need to edit it at the beginning of a new membership year, this can be done as well. If we're looking at changing the group or adding members to it, we can do it from what we saw before with the bulk options after our search results, where we can add them to an existing or create a group of our own. When we look at the group, we can then go to the options and edit this team as well. Whereas we scroll down, we can see all the eligible members that we can quickly add to the group. Or if we're looking for someone specific, we can do this as well to add them in. So it's a very streamlined process to get those sections of our members and communicate with them. This can also be done through SMS. So we saw before, we can SMS our teams or our individual members from the section here on the side. Of course, you can communicate with your members individually by looking at their member profile. With the SMS, just like with your phones, you'll need to purchase credits. You'll also need members with valid phone numbers. Of course, this being a test example, they don't have actual phone numbers, but you can purchase SMS credits to communicate with your members. A lot of organizations prefer to do this because not everyone reads every email, and it adds that little personal touch. If it's a simple reminder about an upcoming event, it's a really easy way to just ping your members and let them know. The cost for the credits is about 16 cents per SMS, so a fairly standard cost associated with that, if that's the option you'd like to use to communicate with them. On top of that, we can also have a look at communicating with our members through newsletters. So in the new re-platforming, we've updated how our newsletter feature works. We can look at this by scrolling down and finding that newsletters feature. It is a pro additional feature, so it does come at an additional cost, but well worth it. When we're looking at creating our newsletters, we have our builds function. Just to show you a couple examples we can see here, we can really design and style these to include images, links, some tags to automatically pre-fill the members' names, as well as some images. Here's another example here where we have their branding at the top, clickable link and embedded images, as well as links to their upcoming events and news articles. So it's really easy to style these and add a bit more dynamic and engagement than a standard email message. When we're building our newsletter and we're going to our newsletter builds, we can start from scratch and pick our layout template. But to see what it looks like, we can go to the layout and see that it stacks different items on top of each other to make it really easy to choose the layout, whether you're including a banner at the top, a section of text, a heading before more text and images, And then we can just add more and more as we go to build out that layout and input all the different features and aspects of the newsletter you'd like. And it's very easy to edit each individual section to make it look and link to exactly what you'd like. When we're looking for our audience and who we want to send our newsletters to, this is also a bit different to when we're sending out our emails. We click the audiences button on the left-hand side. We can see there's already some pre-existing audiences here. If we want to create a new one and find our recipient list for who this is going to be sent to, we can not only choose this from our member groups, and again, filter these by the same search functions, so by membership types or different demographics. We can also set to base our recipients based off our teams or groups that we've created to include multiple ones of those. We also have our address book and subscribers. So these will be separate lists of contacts, separate to your membership group, but they may be contacts of people that want to stay up to date with what's happening in your club or organization. This could be local businesses, sponsors, other stakeholders and families, even other local clubs that you'd like to keep in the loop of your communications, but they may not be existing members in your platform. So when selecting these, we can choose the different groups of subscribers we want, and it's very easy to add new subscribers as well. You can actually include a little link at the bottom of your website. So if we have a look what this website's done at the bottom, we can include a button here where people can add their email address and be automatically added to your subscriber list so that they can stay up to date with those communications if you're sending out regular monthly newsletters and all those key communications. For the newsletters, I mentioned it is an additional cost. So this is one of the upgrades for our pro features. There's a setup fee that depends on the size of your organization. So for smaller clubs, it is a smaller cost. And then the plan's very much like SMS credits. You choose a plan that best suits the amount of credits you want to send out. It's 1 credit per send per member. So if you can work out how many you expect to be sending each week or each month and how many members you have, then you'll be able to know and budget how many credits you can purchase for this as well. On top of creating engaging newsletters and communications, we can also create a really engaging site to attract our members, keep them up to date with information, and attract new members as well. I'll show you the example of our test website here, where we can see we've included our sponsors, we've got our news social media feed, upcoming events, and a really dynamic landing page where members can see exactly what they want to go to and have really easy access to the main key functions of the website. In this, so we can create buttons, add images and links. When we edit our homepage from the site feature, as we scroll down, you may have seen this before, but we can easily move and drag and drop our widgets to include what functions and features are included on the website. And below we have that welcome content where we can start to include additional images and links, create them into buttons. There's also ways to sort these out into cards where they can be dynamically linked and take you to different parts of the website. We have a really helpful guide to help you with this as well. So I can show you here, we have a full guide page on creating buttons, and this is a really easy way to help style your website. This can help include your branding for your website, make it a bit more engaging to your members. And as we scroll down, we can see how many different options there are of how you can make it look. This includes for styling your images below as well. Along with adding different content onto your website, it's really important to include sponsors. So on the left-hand side here, we can include different sponsors that may be associated with your organization. This allows them to have clickable links to their own website where you can see the click-through rate and see how much engagement you're doing. This is really good to see throughout the year to help build engagement with your stakeholders and also perhaps ask for a bit more funding and see how much engagement and growth your website and club is getting. We've also seen a few of the news articles. So for upcoming events and really exciting opportunities, you can create your news articles and post these on your website as well. Just another way of adding some more engagement to keep your members up to date with what's happening in the organization. For some people, they prefer to check the website over seeing it in an email or on social media. So that way you're making sure you're ticking all the boxes. A lot of organizations There we go. Can everyone hear me? Dropped out for a second there.
All good, Liam.
There we are. Thank you. So a lot of organizations will create a news post to promote their Australian Sports Foundation campaign. This allows members, and this can be pinned to your website, so every time people join or view the website, they can see that you're taking donations, and keeps that front of mind for those fundraising purposes. We talked earlier about setting up that Australian Sports Foundation connection with your website, so I'm going to go into that a little bit now and show you on the back end how this can be done. We have the fundraising feature here on the left-hand side, and there are three main options with how you can choose to fundraise. Of course, you can elect to not collect fundraise donations, collecting them as default through the Revolutionize website, where we're just setting different amounts, and we can post this on the site. And most importantly, the new functionality of those tax-deductible donations through the Australian Sports Foundation. These really easy steps to take you through this. It's simply enabling online payments through PIN payments, which clubs will generally have already set up to take their online registrations. This will need to be made mandatory so that members can pay their donations through their online registrations, which we saw Christopher doing earlier. And then lastly, just entering your Australian Sports Foundation membership number. If you don't have one, there's an easy link there to click, so you can go and create it, come back, pop that in, and start taking donations nice and quickly. Once this is all set up and you've started taking donations, we can have a look at the fundraising overview page, where we can see the total amount you've been donated, number of donations, the average and largest amount donated, and those most recent donations have been made. We can see which members have, really giving back to the club. This also includes a link to post the donations on your website, so it doesn't have to just be through the registration process. We can see here, we can copy this link and add this as our own site page on the website. This can be included on your navigation page, so it's really easy to find for all of your members, where they can go in, select their donation amount, add their details, and post this online. On the other side, we've also seen that for a lot of families with the rising cost of living, being able to offer them payment plans has been made a lot easier as well with our new developments. We saw how it goes on the front end and how this can be done through the registration process. So to have a look through the admin portal of how you can set that up, you just go into the finance feature where our payment classes are. And when you're creating or editing your payment classes for the new registration period, we can fill in the details we already have, linking it to the state national capitation fee, however much our club amount is. And if you're absorbing fees, you'll also have a fee calculator here as well to work out how much you'll receive from that total amount once fees are deducted and how much you can set the amount for. As you scroll down, you can include that welcome email. The state and national one will already be pre-filled. So any additional information you'd like to share with your members of this membership type, perhaps a thank you for donating. And we scroll down here, we have this new section to be able to offer these payment plans. So we can set how many installments we'd like members to be able to pay in and how frequently these installments can be made. This can either be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And I believe the installments go all the way up to 52 for once a week for the whole year. And as normal, linking any fee add-ons and the relevant emergency or additional fields. Once we save these details, this is now available on the website for members to choose the option to have a payment plan when they're registering. We also know that some clubs may want to hide this option and have it only available upon request. To do that, we simply edit the payment class and come down to the registration options, and we can turn this off so it's no longer available for members when registering online. This way, members will have to request to get their payment plan option, which is still available if they want it. If they do, we can simply edit the payment class and under options, provide them with this registration link. This will allow members to go through the payment plan option when registering online. So those are a few of the different ways we can help use those new features to make it easier to communicate with our members, create an engaging site, and also provide different financial options, whether it's through the payment plan or also more fundraising through the Australian Sports Foundation. With that, I'll give it back to Christopher.
One of the key things we have now coming into the new membership year is the change in which you'll have other requirements around what membership you might need to do, but also forward planning around some other government obstacles that you need to look at. And where I'm going to go into next section is some common areas that you may already do so far, some areas in which you currently do pretty well, and hopefully you've gotten some inspiration around some what other clubs are doing, but also probably just a refresh for those in the room. What are other areas you should be looking at from a governance aspect? We typically have in revSPORT, for most committees and from my own experience, people that sit on a board or committee for a year or so. And what we do find a challenge for some clubs is remembering for those people who have stepped down that they also need to have their access revoked or step down from revSPORT. So currently, as you can see, I'm in revSPORT. I've gone to the account section on the top right corner of revSPORT, and I've gone to admins. And it best be know that most in the room will have some type of access into revSPORT at the moment. If you don't and you need to, we can obviously arrange that after time. But for those that have stepped down from the committee, from my example, we need to actually revoke their access. Lauren, in this case, needs to be removed. They're currently sitting as our treasurer. And as our treasurer, we need to delete and remove the access. If I go delete, that can perform the deletion. That won't delete the profile for Lauren. So if Lauren is also not officially part of your club moving forward, you'd need to go to the members section to remove or delete the member. It doesn't permanently delete their record completely from the system. It just puts them into your archive list. If we get a new person that's come on board and you have someone who is also going to be in those volunteer roles, either being an event official or someone like Lauren who needs to have a finance access, they first need to be registered in your club. They might be registering under a $0 admin or a membership fee that has no fees attached. But if I was to go to admin, add the admin, and search for that member being Lauren, I can assign whatever group of accesses I need to give to Lauren. And it's best to give limited access where possible. They don't need to see and touch everything as a treasurer. I do implore most to try and give people multi different roles in revSPORT. So if someone leaves halfway through their term, that other person can pick up and do what they need to do. But in this case for Lauren, all we need to do is give her the finance access and add the admin if needed as well. There's some other tools there, which will be the pro features, which we've already shown you, but again, something you can look to do. With that being said, and coming from this session, you probably want to look at a way in which you ask questions to your members now. Typically for most clubs, they don't ask any questions. And where you want to go to create or change those is the member settings. So I've gone to members, I've gone to settings, I've gone to additional information fields or additional fields, and all the questions that are raised by RA and Rowing WA will already be set in your account. But for your own club specific questions that they don't need to see or hear, you have the opportunity now to set those questions now. If some of your members have registered already and you go, they might have been really good to ask them about volunteering or if they're wanting to make a donation, there is opportunity for the member to go onto your public website on revSPORT to update their details, which you can communicate as we've shown you already in this session. But if I was to go to the additional information fields and I go down to the questions, you can actually start to create the questions yourself linked to those membership types. So for that volunteering question, very similar to that hockey club, just list the question that you want to ask, and I would put it as a multi-checkbox input. Have all the different options to volunteer, and if they want to make a donation, sure, they can actually select that option. But I also want to map it to those question fields relating to our adults only, for example, because we might have a policy that only someone over the age of 18 or 21 can be a volunteer within the club. So again, have a look at those questions you want to add and also the questions you already are asking. You might want to remove those fields if you feel like they're not needed anymore, especially if you don't need to collect it for any purpose. So have a quick talk with your committee if you really want to ask for it. If you've got questions like IDs or you're asking for Medicare certificates, we've seen clubs do this in the past. There might be a reason you particularly do it for integrity purposes, but again, you might want to look to remove it. Within revSPORT, we've actually introduced some other elements within the governance section. And the governance section appears at the bottom of your scroll bar on the left-hand side. You've got some tools there you might be familiar with already. One of the elements we've introduced is the ability to screen and manage those members that may hold a suspension. Typically within the governance space, we're talking about members who may not be suspended for the obvious reasons but might actually have a medical related suspension. And for some cases in sport, you might need to medically withdraw someone because they might have had a recent heart attack, or they might have had some other issues affecting their ability to compete on the water. So you can actually be protective and try and stop the member not from registering, but just simply adding the reports of injuries. For those members that have, and I'll quickly show you for the suspension itself, for those members in revSPORT that you have had a conduct suspension, so suspension reason due to foul play or cheating, for example, you have the option to do that into revSPORT, which could actually block the registration. I'll go into that in a sec. But also compliance is very typical. So if you have a member that tries to depart at the end of the year and they haven't paid any fees, you can actually supply a suspension that is flagged against the member profile and to raise to you if they try to register with another organization. You can share it with Rowing WA if you need to. I would probably review that policy with Rowing WA first. You wouldn't want to raise suspensions out of nowhere. You'd need to have communication between that. But for your own internal club, again, lodge the dates it needs to lodge. If it goes for indefinite, you can lodge it for indefinite. One of the key things we do have, though, is that for that member that we saw try to register when I went through the registration process before, we might have a member that has entered their first name, last name, date of birth, or their national ID, and the very first step they try to renew their membership profile, they are greeted with this page. I am required approval for joining again. And I don't have any notice why I need the approval. Typically, if you're joining another club within Rowing WA, you might need a permit or approval in order to go to that other club. But for this case, we are blocking the member because they have a suspension. And that suspension can be resolved using the member screening process. So that member called Suspended Fountain was suspended by the state, and that member has tried to renew again in the state, or in this case, could be the club with the member going back into the club again. I can view the suspension details if it's shared with me. I can make my own notes around what needs to be resolved. So you're giving your other community members notice around what is happening with the suspension. But if they've resolved everything, they've paid their unpaid fee, there's enough time that's moved from the last time that they registered, you would allow them to approve. And once they've been approved, the member would receive a link in order to go to the next step to continue the registration process. If they're denied, sure, they're denied. The member can try and renew again. If you want to, you can remove the suspension so the member can go back in and register. But this gives you an extra layer of protection in order to screen those members. So if you're not aware, suspensions can exist. They can exist in your club for those that are current and those in the past. But in your ecosystem in rowing, if a club across interstate wants to share their suspensions with the network, you would want to check the shared suspensions to detect those members that may be registering into your club. And if they need to be flagged due to contact or compliance, they'll be screened so you and the Origin club can check those details. There's ways to report, review those details in your own time. And again, you can receive notifications that go to a direct person to handle that. But again, in terms of good governance practice, there are ways to manage it in revSPORT. For those medical related suspensions, one of the things we want to go towards is encouraging people, if they've had incidences on event day, at regatta day, they might have slipped, they might have something happened on the water. We might have an instance of a member who claims they've done their swimming, for example, or their medallion to show they are worthy to go onto the water. but clearly we've had an incident on the water that proves they may not be suitable. And you want to build the history of the member profile itself. We do have within revSPORT the capacity to log information against the member history. So if you don't know where that is, if I go to Catherine, and as you can see here, that member who's suspended, as we saw before, flags across the platform in the members overview as well. So if that member has a suspension within the same season, it will detect on your member list to prevent them from doing certain things. What I want to show you though is the member history, and particularly those incidences that have occurred, the suspensions that have occurred, and also for those injuries or incidents that have occurred on the water, we're logging that information against the profile to adhere to good governance practices. They're very small things you can do to have 5% worth of effort to have 50% worth of impact in the long term for your club. But where we want to get to is to encourage more people to retain that information with your club. And if you're a very safe club, fantastic. But being from my experience and background of volunteering and sport, you might have some instances that do occur. And what we do have in revSPORT is the ability, if you want to get members to report in the injuries or incidences that do occur. We have a separate form for incident forms, which allows the end user to enter information. What I do want to show you is a way you can actually improve this on event day. So typically, everyone's on their phones. You want to encourage the member to sign up. You want to encourage the member to lodge a report. You want to encourage the member to do certain things on your club website. What we do have that doesn't exist in the platform, you might see certain parts of this in the events feature, but there is actually a way you can actually print a QR code that points to any site page on your website. In Google Chrome, as you can see, in the URL bar, which you can see just here, we have our URL, our link, and I want to make this a QR code. I've gone into the right-hand side where the three dots are, and I've clicked on Cast, Save, or Share. If you're using a different web browser, I'm not too sure it supports this. If you're using a different version of Google Chrome, it may be in a different place. Where I can go to is create a QR code. That downloads and creates an image for me, which I can download. And that I can actually print off and stick at the front of that clubhouse, or have somewhere, which I put onto the screen now, which if I scan that with my phone right now, that will take me directly to this particular page. And this can be done across any of your websites, any of your other external products that you do use, but especially for revSPORT, where it's very member driven. You could have a link to your donations page or a link to your member account page, but also more importantly, the incidences that occur on the water and any reports of injuries that do occur, because we want to build a picture of those reports coming in so we can do some more interesting things for our club internally. If you are finding you are getting more reports of, and I know this is not very common in rowing, but I do want to flag, concussion or general injuries that do occur, the more information you start to build up, you start to paint a bigger picture of things that might need to improve in the club. So the next meeting that you go to that you might want to raise, the increased instances of injuries that are occurring at our next board meeting, which you can do again in revSPORT. Lodge those instances and link it to the reports that have been raised, create motions off the back of those meetings, and have tasks that go to particular people to investigate those things. What I've previously liked to do, and I know most other clubs do across Australia, is from those reports that they gather through statistics, they can take this information to go to their local council, or also work with Rowing WA that gets an aggregate sum of all the reports that are occurring at the club, to lobby the local government, local council, state government to get funding needed for facilities and to repair areas that are causing injuries as well. And how that's all achieved is by quite simply encouraging people to lodge incidences, injuries, and putting that information into revSPORT as well. That's an overview of the governance tools. There are a couple other areas that you might want to explore in your own time. Again, it's very one of our underutilized features, typically because most of the people like to focus on membership and finance, which is totally okay. But again, have a explore those tools if you want to in your own time. With that being said, that comes to the conclusion of our agenda for this evening, covering the different areas of the new developments that were released for you as clubs and associations. Just to recap, we've shown you the process in which a member registers. They can opt into an auto debit payment plan, the ability for a member to go into, and I'll just cut out my screen share, the ability for a member to make a donation at the point of registration. We hope we've given you some ideas around how to actually include some of those questions in your registration forms. We've showed you the way that can be set up in revSPORT, but also communicate with some other tools like newsletters. And we've also gone to a bit of information around how you can actually then bolster your governance into the new year as well. So with that being said, I would like to have the opportunity now to open up to the floor for any questions that you do have. I did see some of the questions that came through the chat box, which I think Liam has been going through to answer. So I'll let him answer that last one from Sarah. But again, for the floor, if there's any questions that you do have, you're more than welcome to take yourself off mute and happy to answer those for you now. But otherwise, if you feel that's been enough for this evening, thank you all so much for making the time to join. And we hope you have enough, a few more of these sessions that have been being done for you as well. We are expected to be back into WA, hopefully in different areas in WA this time than Perth, but also to run a different version of this roadshow session for the clubs as well. So if you are interested, you're more than welcome to come along again, as we did so a couple of weeks ago. So I'll open up to the floor. Sarah, I see you got your hand up. Sarah, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was really interesting, and I've learnt a lot. There's some fantastic new features. I'm interested in running a raffle for my club, and I understand that Revs has the function to do that. Is that relatively straightforward to set up? And are there any tips and tricks to be aware of?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we don't have a raffle feature within revSPORT that handles directly what we typically see with most clubs running raffles. The way that we generally find that other clubs do this in revSPORT is a couple different ways. And Liam, more than welcome to tag on to this if you've seen some more than I had. But generally, they'll use the events feature to take entries. And those entries can be done using ticket types or event registration types. Events is typically just used for your in-person AGM, trivia night, whatever that might be. But it has been being used for online entries. And typically, if you get an entry and you get your registration, you'll get a unique code being an MA such and such number. We then generally find people will run a report for all the invoices or registrations that have been taken, and then use that as a system to do the raffling. Now, if you get multiple entries of ticket types, there might be other ways you could do this to give obviously a better chance of people who pay for more tickets. But otherwise, that's the primary way that I've seen it. Liam, is there anything you've seen that might be a bit different?
You can also do it through the shop feature as well. Those are the two main approaches, through the shop or events feature. It's very much similar to how Christopher mentioned it. I think we have a guide somewhere they'll be able to find in our records I can send to you as well, with each of those approaches. But yeah, it's pretty much the steps that Chris just laid out.
Okay, that'd be very handy to receive that if it's possible.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you.
Now, I saw another hand up, but I think that's just gone down already. Was there any other questions from the floor? All right, well, that's a good way to end it. So thank you everyone so much again for joining for this evening. I think that's a good way to wrap it up. If you do have any other questions that just comes to mind now, probably 10 minutes just before you go to bed or something like that for us, again, you're more than welcome to contact us through our support line. If you did have any questions, you can contact us through your revSPORT account by going to the help section in the top right corner and lodging a support ticket. For any urgent matters or any other matters that you do have that you probably want to speak to us on the phone, you're also more than welcome to contact us during our business hours. We're here to 6 p.m. generally on Australian Eastern Daylight Time at the moment. which works out to be around about 3 or so. But again, we'll try and attend to your inquiries the next day where possible. T, I've got your hand up, Kilvin.
Yeah, sorry to come in at the very last minute there, but I just noticed, like, I don't think it's available to us on our standard like account purchase, but there you've got the like churn, attract, retain feature as a pro feature. Is that something that we can opt into as a club?
Yeah, absolutely you can. So we've actually made that as a change this year, which allows you to request that snapshot. Generally, that generates to show you your new members that have joined for the year, your returning members that have come from the previous season, and those members that have been lost as well. The snapshot's done on a year-to-year basis, so you want to do a snapshot of potentially the previous 2 years, or you can do one for now. We generally find it's best practice to generate that snapshot once you've gone over 60 or 70% of your season, because it gives a more true reflection of the people that have signed up. But you're more than welcome to have a look at the past 2 years. The pricing for that is based off your account size. The price, off the top of my head, I can't recall. Previously, it was a little bit more expensive for clubs, but it's a lot more easier now to access. So if you want to, just lodge a ticket to us, and we'll come back to you tomorrow on that, and we'll let you know what that looks and feels like. But yeah, it's definitely possible for you to request that if you want.
Yeah, because we currently have got some people who are pretty nifty with like Excel and stuff like that, and we run our own. We've been doing it for 10 years, like since 2016, or coming up to 10 years. But yeah, I saw that, and it would be, because at the moment, like, you know, you can generate a report, but it gives you like a very high level, like, you know, high level overview. But it would be good to get a deeper one if we can pay for it. So yeah, be interesting to know what sort of information you get from that.
Yeah, I can actually try and show you a little bit of it if I find the right account I've got this set for. Yeah, it looks like I'm missing the account. So yeah, my apologies, I don't have that ready for you at the moment, but yes, can definitely talk to you about it. You can have a look and see what it looks like as well. Nancy, you've got your hand up. Would you like to ask a question? Nancy, your mic's off mute, but I can't hear though, so it might be something to do with your settings. No, unfortunately, I've got no sound coming through. That's all good. If you want to type in the chat box or give us an email, we're happy to answer if you want. All right, terrific. Well, on that basis, thank you everyone so much. I'll end the recording there. Much appreciated. Again, if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to contact us through the sport tickets, emails, or calls. But otherwise, thank you so much. We'll speak to you all very soon.